The town of Pinecrest was the kind of place where Christmas was practically a competition. Every December, houses glowed in synchronized displays, twinkling lights, inflatable Santas, reindeer on rooftops, and even a few fake snow machines. But this year, something changed. The newly appointed head of the Homeowners Association, Karen McDougal, had a different vision for the neighborhood, one with less sparkle. Karen was known for her love of rules and her hatred of fun. She called a special HOA meeting just before Thanksgiving, clutching a clipboard thick with printed regulations. This year, she announced, there will be no Christmas lights, no inflatables, and no exterior holiday displays of any kind. It's time we bring order and class back to Pinecrest. Gasps filled the room. The Jenkins family had already bought 5,000 LED bulbs. The Millers were planning their traditional North Pole yard. Even the quiet widow across the street had crocheted new stockings for her porch. Karen didn't care. She claimed lights were a fire hazard, an energy waste, and a distraction to drivers. Within days, Karen was patrolling the neighborhood with her clipboard, issuing warnings to anyone daring to test her decree. She even took photos of string lights and sent formal violation letters at midnight. But there was one resident she didn't intimidate, Ethan Brooks, a tech-savvy contractor with a mischievous streak and a deep love for Christmas. Ethan's family had lived in Pinecrest for decades, and his late father had built the town's first synchronized light show. When Karen's notice arrived on his doorstep, Ethan simply smirked. "You can't bend Christmas, Karen," he said under his breath. By the first week of December, Pinecrest looked dull, every house dark, every yard empty. It felt like someone had stolen the season. Karen proudly drove around in her SUV, congratulating herself. Finally, she muttered, a civilized neighborhood. What she didn't know was that Ethan was already planning his response. He'd spent nights in his garage, soldering wires, coding patterns, and sketching diagrams. The project he was building wasn't just for him. It was for the entire neighborhood. And on December 15th, Pinecrest would see something that would make the national news, a sight so bright, so ironic, and so poetic that even Karen herself wouldn't believe her eyes. Because when she tried to erase Christmas, she accidentally made herself the centerpiece of it. Ethan's garage looked like a cross between Santa's workshop and NASA mission control. Wires hung from the ceiling. Computer screens flashed code. And a 3D printer hummed quietly in the corner. He had one goal, to outsmart Karen without breaking a single rule. He started by studying the HOA regulations line by line. Karen's BANS specifically mentioned holiday-themed exterior lighting displays. But nowhere did it say anything about reflected light. That tiny loophole gave Ethan the spark of an idea. He built a series of high-powered LED panels and aimed them strategically toward Karen's property. With precision programming, he synchronized them to create patterns that would reflect off her massive bay windows, projecting dazzling colors across her entire house. The more she tried to block it, the brighter it would get. Meanwhile, Ethan rallied the neighbors quietly. He showed them his blueprint, not a direct violation, just clever engineering. The Jenkins brought coffee. The Millers helped with wiring. Even old Mrs. Potter offered extension cords. Every night after Karen went to bed, Ethan's team worked under cover of darkness, planting sensors and reflectors around the cul-de-sac. By the time Karen's inspection route came around again, nothing seemed amiss. She didn't notice the faint metallic glints hidden in bushes or the devices angled perfectly toward her home. She just smiled smugly at the dark houses and went back inside. On the evening of December 15th, the plan went live. At exactly 8 p.m., Ethan pressed a single button on his laptop. The LED panels flickered to life, but not on anyone's house. Instead, the entire spectacle bounced straight onto Karen's. Her white walls glowed red and green. Candy canes danced across her garage, and a massive digital Santa waved on her roofline. Her entire property looked like the Las Vegas Strip. Neighbors peeked from their blinds, then burst into laughter. Phones came out. Within minutes, Pinecrest's Dark Christmas became a viral sensation online. HOA president's house turns into giant Christmas display. Karen stormed outside in her robe, screaming, "Who did this?" But no one answered. Ethan simply stood across the street, smiling innocently. "You said no exterior lights," he called out. "Guess you forgot to ban reflections." For the first time, Karen had no words. Her own house had become the brightest in Pinecrest. And she couldn't do a thing about it. By sunrise, Pinecrest was famous. News vans crowded the cul-de-sac. Reporters laughing as they broadcast live from in front of Karen's glowing mansion. The HOA Grinch who lit up Christmas, one headline read. Karen was mortified. She tried to shut down the lights by pulling breakers, drawing curtains, even spraying her windows with black paint. But Ethan's system adapted automatically, shifting angles to bounce off new surfaces. The more she fought it, the more radiant her home became. Meanwhile, the neighbors celebrated. For the first time in weeks, Pinecrest was filled with laughter, music, and holiday spirit. People brought hot cocoa to Ethan's driveway. Children danced in the glow of Karen's unwilling light show. Karen filed a complaint to the HOA board. But the irony was that she was the HOA board. When she called the police, they could only shrug. "Technically, ma'am," one officer said, "no one's breaking any rules. Those lights aren't on your property, they're just reflecting." Her frustration hit new levels when a local journalist asked her for comment live on air. "I was trying to protect the integrity of the neighborhood," she stammered. The clip went viral, with memes of her saying integrity over a neon backdrop of her house. The following day, a letter arrived from the mayor's office inviting Pinecrest to participate in the city's Festival of Lights. Ironically, Karen's home was chosen as the grand centerpiece. Ethan politely asked her permission to participate. She refused, until she learned that the city planned to donate all proceeds to children's hospitals. Cornered by public opinion, Karen begrudgingly agreed. That weekend, hundreds of visitors drove through Pinecrest. Karen's once light-free street became the brightest, happiest block in town. Ethan even programmed the display to flash messages like "Peace on Earth" and "Joy to the World" across her garage door. As the crowd sang carols, Karen stood on her porch, trying to look dignified, but even she couldn't hide a small smirk when a kid yelled, "Your house is awesome, Mrs. Karen." Something inside her softened that night. For the first time, she saw what Ethan and the neighbors had fought to protect, not just lights, but community. And she realized that sometimes, control wasn't power. Connection was. The next week, Karen did something no one expected. She showed up at Ethan's door holding a box of cookies. "Truce?" she asked sheepishly. Ethan laughed and invited her in. Over coffee, she admitted she'd been too strict. "When my husband passed away," she confessed, "the holidays just stopped feeling like home. I thought if I kept everything quiet, I wouldn't have to feel the loss." Ethan nodded. Christmas isn't about noise or lights. It's about remembering we're not alone. Moved by his words, Karen surprised the neighborhood again. She called an emergency HOA meeting. This time to lift the light ban permanently. From now on, she declared, Pinecrest will celebrate the season however it chooses. The announcement brought cheers, and the following night, every home lit up brighter than ever. Ethan helped synchronize the neighborhood's decorations into one massive show, timed perfectly to Christmas carols. For the first time in years, Pinecrest felt united. Karen stood in the street, tears glimmering as the lights danced across her lawn, her own choice this time. She even laughed when Ethan added a playful projection of Santa winking on her roof. News outlets returned for a follow-up story titled, HOA Karen turns hero of Christmas spirit. Interviews poured in, and donations to the children's hospital skyrocketed. Karen, once the symbol of control, became the ambassador of compassion. On Christmas Eve, the entire neighborhood gathered in her driveway for hot chocolate and a countdown. Ethan handed Karen a remote and said, "You should do the honors." She pressed the button, and the sky erupted in synchronized light, reds, greens, golds, every bulb, every reflection shimmering in harmony. The crowd cheered. Music played, and for a moment, Pinecrest glowed brighter than Vegas. Karen turned to Ethan with a smile. "You know," she said softly, "maybe a little chaos isn't so bad." Ethan grinned. "Told you. You can't bend Christmas." The two clinked cocoa mugs as the light sparkled above them. And laughter echoed down the street. That night, Pinecrest wasn't just a neighborhood, it was a family. And the house that once symbolized control became the beacon of joy for the entire town, proving that sometimes the brightest miracles come from the people we least expect.